somehow or other we must make a spiritual relationship. And that relationship must be with someone who has a higher relationship himself or herself. If the Shiksha Guru we are taking shelter of, or the Vaishnava we are taking shelter of, if they don't have a relationship with Guru and Krishna, then they can't help us. Then our relationships will just take us down lower and lower. But if they have a higher relationship and we attach to them in relationship, then they will lift us up. But somehow or other, with someone or other, we must develop a spiritual relationship, and then we can start to be uplifted. And if we develop a real loving friendship with them, through that loving friendship, when we're absent from them, then separation will purify all our anarthas. So we'll just end on this thing. Yesterday, 2 days ago, you asked this question, that how can we tolerate our anarthas? We have so many different anarthas. There's so many different categories of anarthas, but basically we're trying to do spiritual life. We want to be good, but still we have bad desires, and they're always boiling up in our mind and in our heart, and they're very difficult to tolerate. So how to tolerate them? Prabhuji told me once in a letter, okay, I came in the mud in 2005, and I stayed for 6 months. Then I had to go back for a visa, or it was the first time, so I only stayed for a few months. When I first went back, then he said, you should try to make a 5-year visa. He said, if you only stay for 6 months at a time, then you don't get deep enough into the flow of spiritual cultivation in life. It's very difficult to progress if you're staying for 6 months, going for 6 months, staying for a few months, going for a year. He said, try to make a 5-year visa and stay for 5 years. So I had to make a 10-year, I could only make a 10-year, no, I made a student visa, but they only gave me 1 year. So I came back in 2007, stayed for another year. I was still on a tourist visa. Then, anyhow, I made a student visa for 1 year, but then I extended it for 5 years, paying 40,000 rupees. And then after that, I extended it, first 1 year, then 2-3 years, I extended it 1 year at a time, then 5 years, I extended it with 40,000, right? So I stayed from 2008 to 2016. So Prabhuji in that letter where he said you should do a 5-year visa, he said, look, the senses are mundane. And naturally the senses will give us different anarthas. And we cannot avoid that. These material senses, as long as they are with us, and as long as our blood, he said, the blood in our body is made of so much karma. All our blood, it's all our past karma. And we get this blood from our family. And this gives us family desire also, or desire for sense gratification. And he said, you should try not to be too concerned about this. If you have bad desires, you're in the process of purifying that. The most important thing is developing relationship through seva and service to high-class Vaishnavas. And he said, that will lift you out of Maya. He said, the Vaishnavas don't look at if you have bad desires or not. According to your senses and your karma, everyone will have different material desires until you're completely pure. Bhakting parang bhagavati pratilabhya kamam. First bhakti will come, then kam will go. And all anarthas are coming from this first problem, which is, okay, you don't know who you really are, Swarup Brahm. Then comes asat trishna, material desires. That's our anartha. Then comes hridaya durbalya, weakness of heart, and we're not able to stop ourselves from sometimes misbehaving, and then we commit aparad. So these are the 4 main categories of anarthas. And within those categories, there's many other kinds. So in order to get rid of asat trishna, which is material desires, first we need to fix Swarup Brahm, our mistaken identity. That means we have to realize our real relationship with Vaishnavas and realize our true Swarup. And that's only through positive spiritual practice. If you're only worrying about, my senses are disturbing me, Prabhuji said, the mind and the senses, tell them to get lost. If your chanting in your mind is disturbing you, say, okay, I don't care, anyhow I'm sitting and chanting. Anyhow I'm sitting and mentally going on parikrama. You can do anything you want, but now I'm sitting here. You can tell your mind, look, for 30 minutes today, right now, I'm only chanting and focusing on these slokas, remembering these slokas, or praying to Radharani. That's one reason why we learn these slokas. There's a way to focus our mind while we're chanting. Okay, now I'm chanting Harinam. Okay, let's remember verse 1, Vilap Kusumanjali. And while we're chanting, we can meditate on the meaning of this, everything we've heard. Then we can meditate on verse 2. That's an easy way to absorb our mind. And we say, look, mind, after half an hour, you can go and play. Okay, after half an hour, I'll give you an ice cream. But Prudi's point is, don't worry so much about the senses, because the senses will have these desires. We cannot avoid that. They're mundane. Our blood is mundane. We cannot go against our blood. But if we develop spiritual relationship with Vaishnavas, mamata, which means real feeling of family. This Vaishnav is my family, my spiritual family. My blood family is temporary. I've been in millions of families, millions of blood families, but my spiritual family is my real family. If we develop that mamata, minus with Vaishnavas, then that gives us the qualification to get prem, divine love. So we see Vaishnavas are so merciful. So many people have so many different anarthas, but they give everyone shelter. And we have to tolerate these by ultimately developing now the way to burn through them. So one thing Prabhupada said is don't be too concerned. Go ahead following your process. He said be patient, and he said 2 instructions. Try to be patient, and then don't rush. You have to try to stay for a long course. Like if you go to university, you have to go for 4 years. Otherwise, you're not going to get a major in anything. So try to stay for a certain amount of time where you can really develop. I noticed myself, if you're going back and forth a few times, then it's like you're in an embryo and you are maturing in that way. And if you jump out of that, then you have to start back from the first point again. Or if you're a caterpillar and you want to become a butterfly, you eat and you eat and you eat, like we take so much Mahaprasad. Like a caterpillar. Take prasad, take prasad, take prasad. And then you wrap up in your cocoon, and then when you open out, you become a butterfly. So in our practice, we're staying in the ashram, chanting Harinam, doing the program, and we may feel like a caterpillar, ugly, fat, lazy. But if we follow this process then, if we follow the process, stick to the process, one day we can become transformed into a butterfly, into Radhika's Manjari or into Krishna's Saka, whatever it may be. But we have to be patient. And don't be upset like, now I'm a caterpillar. As long as we're a caterpillar, we'll be like that. We'll have mundane desires and all these things. But we just need to develop a little bit of greed. That's the main thing. If we have anarthas, no problem. But if we have this spiritual greed, anyhow, I want to become Radhika's Palyadasi. And we pray to Lalita for that, she'll give it. We pray to Lavanga, Rupa Manjari, all of them, they'll give it. They don't think, oh, you're a dirty, conditioned soul. The point is, the Atma is always pure. Prahlad Maharaj said, 12 symptoms of the soul. Atma nitya avyaya shuddha eka kshetraga avyaya vikriya swadrik hetur vyapako svap anarvrita. The soul is always pure. So we have these material coverings of our anarthas. They're not our real nature. They're not us. These material desires are not who we are. They're not who we are. So once we can transcend that, then it'll just be like a bad dream we went through. So we just have to be patient. Utsaha nishchaya dharya. Be patient and anyhow tolerate and try to nurture, kindle this greed. And this greed, as much as you can increase this greed and develop relationship and family kind of mamata with the Vaishnavas, then when you develop separation, this will burn your anarthas. That's why separation is important. Separation is a fire, dandaya manam. A fire will burn everything that's not your atma. All your anarthas will be burnt away. The whole forest will be burnt away. Bhava Mahadavagni, everything will be burnt away through the fire of separation. So when you can come to this point where you're praying and crying and weeping in separation, then all the anarthas will be burnt away. And before that stage, said, okay, you should happily perform bhakti in a joyous way, in the association of Vaishnavas, not worrying too much. Anyhow, try to stay in Vaishnava association. Okay? Too much. Any follow-up? About? So ask the question, then we'll do it tomorrow. What's the question?
Last question. I don't understand actually.
Sada asa kori bringa rupa dhori charana kamalistan anayase pai Krishna gunagai arnaba jivo an. I always desire to take the form of a bee and attain shelter at his lotus feet. I will always sing Krishna's glories and never worship any other. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo.